Good morning, Keller Williams, and welcome back to 66 Conversations with MAPS Coaches. I'm excited today to be joined by my friend and amazing MAPS coach here in our amazing Houston area, Miss Sarah Detmore. Sarah, how are you today?
I'm good, Marty. How are you?
I'm doing well. Hey, for those of you that don't know Sarah, you need to get to know Sarah. Sarah, tell them a little bit about yourself, who you are, who you coach, kind of what's going on in your world, and then we will jump into a buyer objection after we do that.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Marty, for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you. Obviously, it's always good to see you, even though I live down the street from you.
Right.
I love to see you when I can. So I'm Sarah Detmore, MAPS coach here in Houston, Texas. I have been a MAPS coach since 2019, primarily focusing on coaching agents who are buyer agents on teams or director of sales agents or agents who are looking to grow into more of a leadership role within their respective team. Again, like I said, I'm in the Houston area. I joined Keller Williams back in 2013 and have been an agent on a mega team really for the last about 9 years, and am a MAPS coach and excited to overcome some objections with you today, Marty.
Well, fantastic. I know in your time as an agent and in coaching agents as well, you've worked with a ton of buyers and with a ton of clients who are working with buyers. So the objection today is buyer-based. It's that buyer that has a buyer consultation with you, sets some perimeters on budget and price point, and then all of a sudden, a few days, a few weeks later, says, Sarah, we want to go see that house.
Mm-hmm.
And it is well beyond the buy box that they kind of set or was set for them.
Yeah.
How do you handle a buyer who wants to see a house that's maybe they can't afford or didn't sound like they wanted to afford?
Sure. So affordability is such a big piece of the conversation in that initial consultation, right? So agents out there, I really want to encourage you to revisit your buyer consultation or your strategy session to ensure that you are using that initial conversation as the anchor for your entire relationship with your buyer client. In these kind of situations, Marty, because it happens, right? Our buyers, they have a budget, and that's a big cornerstone of what's causing them to want to purchase right now. Is they have gotten to a space financially where they're making arguably one of the biggest purchases of their life. And it happens sometimes where buyers see a home online. The internet is such a powerful resource for our buyers. They might see a home online and it might be $50,000, $100,000 above what they shared their maximum budget was with us in that buyer consultation. So a simple question I love to ask when a buyer might send me a listing and say, hey, Sarah, this just popped up. I'd love to see it. My first responsibility as the buyer agent is to vet that listing. I want to make sure not only is it in the search parameters that the buyer shared with me that they told me was important to them in their purchase. I want to make sure it makes financial sense for that buyer. I look at the price, I look at some market data, I look at the tax rate, and I educate the buyer on what that estimated payment might be in partnership with a lender, right? So, but to answer the question, a simple question I ask the buyer is, wow, buyer, thank you so much for sharing this listing with me. It looks like this house is priced, $50,000 above what you shared your max budget was with me in our buyer consultation. I'm just curious, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what's changed for you?
I love it. There's a slight door opening there, and that maybe something did change. Maybe they are willing to spend a little more. Maybe they got a bonus. Maybe they got a raise. Maybe it's a promotion we don't know about. Maybe. I love that you don't automatically assume, hey, you can't afford this, right? Which I think is fantastic. Right. And yet you are very clear, this and this, right? Meaning our buyer consultation and this listing don't line up. Tell me more. I love that you come from curiosity. Yeah.
Tell me more. Right. I want to open the door for the conversation because I've also learned from experience that jumping and running to show a house is not a recipe for success in our world. No matter the market, jumping and running because the buyer wants to see the house is not a win for everybody. So beyond asking that initial question, Marty, of what's changed for you, you're right. We might get a response where the buyer says, yep, I got this bonus. Here's my new pre-approval letter. Let's go see it. If all of that makes sense, I'm in. Sure. Right. In addition to that, though, we want to bring the buyer back down to reality.
Right.
And we want to say something to the effect of, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I appreciate you sharing with me that nothing's changed for you. It's really important that we stay within our financial parameters that we spoke about at our initial consultation. Isn't that right? The buyer's going to agree.
Right.
In most cases, right?
Most cases, yeah.
In most
what do you
cases,
say when they say, well, what if, Sarah? I mean, maybe
Oh, the
they'll
what
take
if.
300 on this $350,000 home, right? The market is shifting, isn't it? That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, Marty, and you're not wrong, right? The market is very different now than it was 30 days ago. And I'm so glad that you're aware of that. Would it be okay with you if I actually shared some realistic numbers with you specific to this neighborhood, such that we can get a better gauge on what this home actually might sell for? Because
Sure.
the numbers do the heavy lifting, right?
And what are those numbers that you typically share?
Typically I look first at the list price to sell price ratio. And I look at what's sold in the last 30 days. I'll go back farther if I need to, 60 days, 90 days. Definitely don't go farther back than 6 months. But I really look at list price to sell price ratio of what's sold in the last 30 days. That's going to be our most accurate sales data. And I look at that percentage, right? At what percentage of the total list price did this house sell for? That's a good indicator of at what percent of the current sales price that subject property might sell for.
I love it. And nothing is sold at 85%, Mr. Buyer. So
And nothing has.
what makes you
Right.
think that this house would sell at 85%, right?
That's the question. Now, don't get me wrong, Marty. I know you've seen this too, is there are always going to be the sellers out there who may be in more of a desperate situation. So there's always a possibility.
Right.
And I don't want to rule that out. So if I get to a point in a conversation with a buyer where they say, well, Sarah, that this seller might take 300 on a house priced at 350. Yeah,
Sure.
they might. I'm going to call the listing agent and I'm going to open up a dialogue and have a conversation, because I make a commitment to the buyers in that initial consultation. And we actually get into an agreement. We're not going to show a house or see a house together that they wouldn't make an offer on. Their time is valuable. Everyone's time is valuable. I wouldn't want to ask a seller to get their home show ready and vacate a home for a house that my buyers wouldn't purchase.
Sure. And I think sometimes we always run that risk of showing them that house. That's the one they fall in love with, the one they can't have, the one that everyone after that gets compared to, right? And that's shame on us for ever showing it to them in the first place. It's one thing to fall in love online. It's a whole nother thing to fall in love in person. And now every other house gets compared to that one that maybe we had no business showing them, that they had even in seeing
right
in the first place, right?
Well, Marty, you're right. And what I also see happens in those instances is that slowly starts to chip away at the trust that we work so hard to build with our buyer clients, because I know buy side versus sell side, there's a lot of emotion in real estate, no matter how you look at it. And when we make little decisions and compromises like that in our relationship with the client that doesn't go in the client's favor, it can cause us to break trust. And then before you know it, they're saying, Sarah, we're going to go hire somebody else who is going to show us the house that we can't afford. And so a lot of these things can really be discussed and referred back to from that buyer consultation, because that's so many of those expectations get discussed there, where we even talk through the scenario of buyer, you're going to find a house that might not be in your buy box. And when you do, here's how that conversation is going to go.
I love that you brought it back to that most important point too that I heard is that buyer consultation, because like you said, the trust, the emotions, it all starts there. And if we're not doing a powerful, fully developed buyer consultation, then everything else is on shaky ground. So
definitely. And I think the biggest thing whenever we're faced with any kind of objection, just what I've learned and the several years I've been doing this is asking questions can unlock so many different layers of that objection, because there's so much more to that initial objection of a buyer saying, I want to see this house I can't afford, or I want to make an offer. I'm not going to make an offer because of the carpet, right? There's something else underlying that by just asking a few simple, very open-ended questions, we can really learn more than we probably thought we could.
Guys, if you can't tell, while Sarah is one of the best buyer's agents in the business and one of the best buyer's agent coaches now in the business as well. I'm not sure if you listened over the last few minutes there. Sarah, thank you so much for your time and handling what is a tricky and sometimes, tough objection to overcome, but it's a conversation that can be had. You did excellent in giving us all the different types of ways to have that. So thank you.
Awesome.
Guys,
Marty.
tune in tomorrow. We'll have a brand new MAPS coach and a brand new conversation. And Sarah, thanks again. We'll look forward to seeing you all real soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Marty.
Of course.
Bye.